This is a case about hate. It's a case about...
This is Devin Robinson, an 18-year-old from Detroit who went to a house party one night, got intimately involved with people there. He then spent the next 50 minutes at home deciding what to do about it and came up with a decision that left 3 people dead. What drove him back into that house with a gun is something the prosecution answered clearly in court. Before we get into what happened inside that house on Devonshire Street, you need to know who everyone is, because this story gets told a lot online, and most of the time it gets the details wrong, or it just skips over the people who actually lost their lives. Alante Deshawn Davis went by Tay, and at 21 years old, he was one of those people who just made every room feel more alive. His sister remembered him as silly and full of energy, the kind of person who was always ready to help somebody out. Timothy Blanchard went by Miami and was 20 years old, known for being funny and quick with his words. He and Tay were basically attached at the hip. One friend described it like this: whenever you saw one of them, you saw the other, literally. And then there was Paris Cameron, 20 years old, a black transgender woman from the east side of Detroit who everyone in their circle called the Glue. She loved cooking soul food and was deep into voguing. She was always changing her hair and her look and had plans to move to Atlanta when she turned 21 to start a new chapter as herself, on her own terms. All 3 of them were part of the same tight group of young black LGBTQ people in Detroit who looked out for each other, hung out together, and were just living their lives. None of them made it to see the morning of May 25, 2019. Now let's talk about Devin Robinson, because understanding who he was matters just as much. Robinson was 18 years old at the time of the crimes and lived at 3440 Buckingham Avenue on Detroit's east side, just 2 blocks from where everything would happen. By all public records, he had no major criminal history before this, but his childhood was genuinely rough. Court documents later revealed that his father was in prison while he was growing up. His housing situation was unstable. He was raised in serious poverty. He was exposed to drug issues at home and was intimately touched wrongly as a child. And on top of that, at 17 years old, he was actually shot while trying to protect his mother. That background came up later at sentencing as context for who he was. But on the night of May 24th, it did not stop him from making a choice that destroyed multiple lives.
This is a case about hate. It's a case about
lives, including his own. The way the night started, there was nothing unusual about it. Lance Atterbury hosted a house party at his home on 3474 Devonshire Street, and by the time the evening got deep into the early hours of May 25th, the larger crowd had gone home, and it was just a small group left: Alante, Paris, Timothy, and their friends Clifton Keys and Armand Matthews. Around 2:30 in the morning, the group decided to walk to a nearby BP gas station to grab some things and keep the night going. Devin Robinson happened to be at that same gas station. He was a total stranger to all of them. Paris noticed him, and being who she was, she walked right up and invited him back to the party, though Robinson did not jump at the offer right away. Surveillance cameras at the gas station picked up the whole back and forth, Robinson walking toward Devonshire and then stopping, then turning back, then going again. It was like he was having a whole internal conversation with himself about whether he really wanted to do this. Eventually, he walked back to the house with the group. What happened at that party is where everything changed. Once Robinson got upstairs at the Devonshire house, things got sexual, and not in a small way. According to trial testimony, multiple people at the party were involved with Robinson intimately that night, including some of the victims, and people in the house were very loud and open about what was going on. Guests were running up and down the stairs laughing, and by the time it was over, the whole house had basically been making jokes about Devin Robinson and his sexuality for a good stretch of time. When Robinson finally got dressed and headed for the door, both Clifton Keys and Armand Matthews clocked that something was off about this guy. He was not giving off the energy of a guy who had a good time and was heading home. After Robinson walked out of the Devonshire house, Lance Atterbury also left with another friend, which left just the 5 people at the house: Alante, Paris, Timothy, Clifton, and Armand. They sat around the table together, talking and laughing about the wild night they'd just had. They had no reason to believe that the man who just left was 2 blocks away at his mother's house, thinking about how to make sure none of them could ever tell anyone what Devon Robinson had done that night. After Robinson left the Devonshire house, surveillance cameras at the BP gas station picked him up again at around 4 o'clock in the morning, which was almost an hour before the shooting. He was outside the store dry heaving and spitting, then went inside, bought some juice
This is a case about hate. It's a case about
and left without saying anything to anyone. Whatever was going on in his head during that stretch of time, his body was clearly under pressure. Then Robinson went home, changed into all black clothing, grabbed a gun, put on a ski mask, and walked those 2 blocks back to Devonshire Street. The whole point was to make sure that nobody sitting in that house could ever go back to the neighborhood and start talking about what Devon Robinson had done that night. Back inside the house, Alante, Paris, Timothy, Clifton, and Armand were still sitting at the table together when they heard footsteps at the door. For a second, they all thought it was Lance, the host, coming back to play a joke on them, because Lance was that kind of person. Then the shooting started, and it did not stop. Clifton said he heard shot after shot after shot, more than 20 rounds going on inside that house. Clifton made it to a bathroom and locked himself inside. Armand grabbed Timothy and got him down to the basement, where he held his hands over the gunshot wound on his chest and stayed on the phone with 911 the entire time, trying to keep his friend alive until help arrived.
When police got there within minutes, neither Clifton nor Armand could identify who had done the shooting. The person was fully masked, and it happened fast. But a couple of days later, once Clifton had some time to come down from the shock of what he had been through, he told investigators something that became a key part of the case. He had looked at the shooter's eyes through the mask, and the skin tone and eye color matched the man Paris had brought home from the gas station earlier that night. That gave detectives a real starting point to work from. Detectives pulled the surveillance footage from the BP gas station and used facial recognition to identify Robinson as the person captured on camera earlier that night. They also got footage from a private camera on a house across the street from Robinson's Buckingham Avenue address, and another camera on a house across from the crime scene. What those cameras showed was very specific. At exactly 4:53 in the morning, a person dressed in all black could be seen leaving from the direction of Robinson's home and walking toward Devonshire Street, the shooting happening just minutes after that, and then at 4:58, that same figure appeared on camera again, running back toward Buckingham Avenue. Yet another camera showed the figure going back into the house at 3440 Buckingham by 5:01 in the morning. A whole round trip from his front door to the crime scene and back took 8 minutes. Phone records connected to
This is a case about hate. It's a case about
Phone records connected to Robinson were also pulled and compared against the camera timestamps, which lined up and put him right where the prosecution said he was. On top of that, his DNA was found on Timothy Blanchard's right hand, which connected him physically to the victims from earlier in the night. When police went to 3440 Buckingham to bring Robinson in, he was already gone. He and his mother, Mallory Robinson, had left the house shortly after the shooting and were not cooperating with anyone. Robinson had been watching himself on the news and knew exactly what was coming. He got out of the neighborhood and laid low on the other side of the city while his family ran interference for him. The jail calls that were recorded after he was eventually caught gave prosecutors a window into how Robinson and his family were handling the whole situation, and it was not the behavior of people who believed he was innocent. It was people doing math, trying to figure out what evidence existed and what could still be hidden. His mother was also heard on those calls upset that people in the neighborhood were saying Devin was gay, and his response made clear what had been eating at him from the moment he left that party. In the end, it was an anonymous tip through Crime Stoppers that gave detectives his location. On June 5, 2019, 11 days after the murders, police found Robinson sitting out on a porch on Claremont Avenue across the city and arrested him right there. His mother, according to the prosecution, was upset he had not been more careful about staying hidden.
He was 19 years old when that sentence came down. That should have been the end of it, but 2 years later the legal situation shifted. In 2022, the Michigan Court of Appeals upheld all of the convictions but threw out the life without parole sentences and sent the case back for resentencing. The reason had nothing to do with his guilt, which the court said was supported by what it called overwhelming evidence. The issue was a ruling from the Michigan Supreme Court that same year, which found that giving an automatic life without parole sentence to someone who was 18 at the time of their crime was unconstitutional because it did not take into account the circumstances of young people, things like their upbringing, their environment, and whether they had the ability to change. Because Robinson was 18 when he committed the murders, the court said he had to be resentenced individually, with all of that weighed properly. In July 2024, Robinson
Now this is a case about hate. It's a case about
stood before Judge Thomas again, this time at 23 years old, and received 35 to 60 years for each of the 3 murder counts. The court heard everything about his childhood, the absent father, the poverty, the sexual assault, getting shot at 17 while protecting his mother. Robinson spoke in court, said he felt regret, and asked the victims' families to forgive him. He also tried to claim the sexual activity at the party had not been something he wanted. Devin Robinson is in Michigan Department of Corrections custody right now and will not be up for parole consideration until he has served at least 35 years. He will be close to 60 years old before that day comes. Do you think this situation was really an exposure of a down-low guy or a guilt-filled crash-out? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know what you think. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.
Everybody that's from Philly, my 80s babies, y'all should know about Shelly Turner, because I was in middle school when Shelly Turner disappeared. Shelly Turner was a high school athlete. She ran track. She was on her way to the Olympics, they say. They say she was Olympic level. Shelly Turner, if you went against her, she was going to smoke you on that track field. This story was so sad because it's like she had her whole life ahead of her. Her future was so bright. Shelly Turner was only 17 when she disappeared in January in Philadelphia in 1993. And she was found dead a month later in Fairmount Park. Now, everybody was a suspect. You had her boyfriend, Sean. They questioned him because he was the last one to see Shelly. Shelly was secretly had a boyfriend. She went over his house to meet his family, and then she got on a trolley around 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, they was having so much fun. Sean said that they forgot track of the time, and her mother, Shelly's mother, did not play that. Vivian King did not play that. She didn't want Shelly to be with any type of boys. Like, people say Vivian King was a strict parent. So strict that Shelly couldn't talk to boys on the phone, and she could not date them at all. Also, her friends say that Vivian was also a track star. That's why it was so crazy that Vivian never went to any of Shelly's competitions. Crazy, right? This is Vivian. When Shelly went missing, they say Vivian was all over the news, all on the radio, pleading for people to please, please, please help her find her daughter that she loved oh so much. Some people say it was almost like Vivian loved the fame. So when Shelly's body was found, her mother said that Coach Hickey was really close to Shelly and they should look into Coach Hickey. Coach Hickey was one of those coaches, he did not play. They said he talked to them crazy, like, listen, get your ass on the field, let's go. Like, we need to win this. He wasn't like, come on, guys, we really need to win this meet. No, he was like, no, like, I know your potential. You're going to go out there and you're going to smoke these girls. They say Coach Hickey was one of the number one coaches, but he stayed in high school over there at Penn. They say Coach Hickey made stars out of these girls. Like, Penn High School was known for sending these girls to college on a check and field scholarship. So when Shelly's mom accused Coach Hickey, look into him, he really was close to my daughter, nobody could believe it. They like, what? But they looked into Coach Hickey and he passed the polygraph. He went all over the world with these girls and nobody had nothing negative to say about Coach Hickey. On the other hand, people started to notice during Shelly's funeral that her mom looked like she didn't even care, that she didn't cry. I mean, some people don't cry at funerals, but this is your daughter, your beloved daughter. They said her face was stone face and she just was like, okay. So Vivian King thought she was bigger than the program. She thought that she probably was going to get away with this. She goes on the Mary Mason show and says something like, oh, Shelly's teeth must have been glistening in the moonlight in Fairmount Park. Like, that was her last, like, that's what her teeth must have been looking like before somebody shot her. Now, mind you, after she went on the Mary Mason radio show, Mary Mason called the police like, y'all need to look into the mom. Something is really wrong with her. Because her mom was not a suspect. It was the boyfriend, Sean. It was a young girl named Toya that also was on her way to Olympus. They was looking at her and they was also looking at the coach. Nobody was looking at Vivian because remember, Shelly allegedly never made it home that night after she left Sean's house. Vivian was going on so much news broadcast. It was almost like she enjoyed it. And she also tried to make it seem like her and Shelly had the perfect mother-daughter relationship when really Vivian didn't like Shelly. Vivian was jealous of Shelly, if you ask me. So when Shelly got home that night, Vivian was drinking heavily. She told Shelly, let's go. I'm taking you to a juvenile detention center. And they get in their car and she takes Shelly to Fairmount Park where she hit her over the head with the gun several times. And then she shot her daughter and then pretended that she ain't never see Shelly. Y'all gotta watch this, Sean. It was so sad. Like, anybody from Philly, I know y'all remember Shelly Turner. It's Mean Girl Murders, Season 3, Episode 6. All right, y'all.